Wow, just look at your neighbor and tell them you're looking good. Yeah. Tell him or her, master your mind. Master your mind. When we see people who have achieved a lot, they dwarf our puny efforts and make mockery of our achievements. We are forced either to admire them or to repel them. But either way, you can't ignore them. Their greatness is nerve-wracking and threatening, and sometimes can make us feel insecure. When we look at people who've achieved a lot in life, we think they are better than us. They are much smarter than us. They are more driven than we are. We imagine how blessed they are, how lucky they are, how fortunate they are, how favored they are. And many of us think about these guys and think maybe they just flow along their purpose effortlessly. Nothing could be further from the truth. You see, when we look at people who've achieved a lot, or when we look at great achievement, we expect complex answers to explain it. And whenever we imagine that people who've achieved a lot are more endowed than we are, then since we are not as gifted as they are, we give up on great goals and settle for something less than we were originally designed. And the real problem is that we're not looking closely enough. Had we to look closer enough, we would realize that at the core of every great man, at the core of every great woman, behind every great success story, at the very heart of every successful event, lies a series of simple daily decisions and actions. In fact, a stream that flows consistently cuts a valley, rather makes a valley. And each one of us listening to me here tonight, you can achieve your wildest aspirations by starting the very first cardinal step, your thoughts. You see, your mind is a memory tank. Our mind, our subconscious mind rather, recognize patterns. These patterns define us. Once they become repetitive, they become hardwired in our subconscious system. We are what we repeatedly do. Repetition is the mother of all learning. For those of us perhaps who've driven 15, 20 years, you remember in those days, we didn't have a lot of automatic vehicles. The transmission was manual. And every time you wanted to maybe engage the transmission gears, you used to be very careful while stepping on the clutch, being very cautious not to confuse the brake pedal with the accelerator pedal. Then weeks turned into months and they turned into years. And finally you drive unconsciously. In other words, you drive with your subconscious mind. So much so, your mind is no longer on the steering wheel. And maybe some of you listening to me here tonight, you've been arrested a couple of times because of being on the phone while still driving. Does that make sense? You are preparing for a seminar. You're thinking about the next agenda. Your mind is not on the driving wheel. What is true for driving is true for swimming. It is true for jogging. It's true for cooking. It is true for cycling. It is true for any other activity on earth. Your subconscious mind doesn't decide what is good or bad for you. Your subconscious mind doesn't act in your best interest. Your subconscious mind simply implements your conscious orders. Put it otherwise. Your conscious mind performs your conscious orders. I think this is the most liberating truth you'll ever hear on earth. The quality of your life is a reflection of the quality of your thoughts. The life you're leading right now is a reflection of what goes on in your mind, your thoughts. Your thoughts make you. Your life is an overflow of your thoughts. What seed do you sow in your mind? You see, the land doesn't care what you sow. You have a choice to make. You can sow poisonous seeds or valuable crops. The land doesn't care. You get a harvest commensurate to the seed you planted. And even if you choose to plant good crop, how much harvest you're going to reap depends on the extent to which you sow the crop, you're at liberty to sow sparingly or liberally. For example, you may choose to interact with these kind of messages you're having tonight every once a year. Or you may choose to commit yourself to listen every month, and then every single day you go to more than 200 of our videos that are available for you free of charge on YouTube. But I believe with all my heart, you can't expose yourself continually to what I teach here 1 year in a row, and not just every month, but every single day. Go and digest and process through our videos, through our articles, which I share with you daily free of charge. They are available daily. I share with you inspirational articles daily and remain the same. And the testimonies are overwhelming here and elsewhere. Even people I mentor overseas from a distance. But you are at a more advantageous position because you interact in a live audience, and it's fundamentally different from listening to YouTubes. Here's the question. What does Albert Einstein and Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., or Nelson Mandela, or Serena Williams, or other achievers like Madonna Ciccone have in common? Different pursuits, but deliberate thinking patterns. We do recognize as the leading scientist of the last 1 century, Albert Einstein himself says he doesn't think of himself as a genius or exceptionally gifted or smart, but he's very curious. In other words, he says, I immerse myself in my subject matter very deeply. Never before in the history of mankind have we seen such a large crop of preachers taking advantage of their parishioners, disguising themselves as propagating the gospel. Preachers who never tell us about strife Masiua, who despite protracted legal battles with the Zimbabwe government at a time that the economy of that nation was at a free fall, the highest hyperinflation recorded in history, hit up to 15,000%. Despite all that, he established Econet Wireless, the second largest company in Zim by capitalization, and now has presence in Rwanda, Burundi, Lesotho, and even he has now acquired Airtel Nigeria, and he has presence even in Botswana. His estimated net worth is 1.7 billion US. These preachers never tell us anything about Patrice Motsepe, the first and so far the only USD billionaire, black billionaire in South Africa. A man who never started with wealth. He never received anything from his forebears. On the contrary, he grew up in the slums of Soweto in difficult times in apartheid South Africa. This law graduate began his business by buying low-producing gold shafts. And now his company, Africa Rainbow Minerals, has interest in copper and cobalt and nickel and platinum and gold. His estimated net worth is 2.4 billion US dollars. These preachers will never mention to you the truth about Mike Adenuga, who was a cab driver and a security guard in the US to fund his own studies. Went back to his motherland in Nigeria, where he began by selling lace and distributing Coca-Cola products. Then he established Glow Wireless, the second largest wireless company in Nigeria. He's now the second richest man in Nigeria with an estimated net worth 5.3 billion US. Yes, these preachers will never mention about Aliko Dangote, who borrowed some money from his maternal uncle and began trading in sugar and flour, rice, cement, before manufacturing the same products large scale. His estimated net worth is 12.2 billion US dollars, and he's regarded the richest black man on the face of the earth. In fact, these preachers will never mention our very own Paul Kenodia, who was just hawking in the streets of Nairobi. And one day he decided to manufacture the shampoos he was hawking in a makeshift factory downtown Kirinyaga Street. And then, being the only salesman when he began his own company, he went door to door, from one beauty shop to another, convincing the spa owners that his unbranded shampoo was as equally good as the imported ones. Fast forward, that was 1991. In the year 2012, he sold one of his products, Nice and Lovely, at 2 billion Kenya shillings to L'Oreal, the largest cosmetic industry on earth. I interviewed Paul I recorded that story in one of my books. You don't need a job. I gave Paul Kinuvia story because it's very fascinating. We have since become tight with one another because I'm attracted by success. I'm attracted by people who start stories and convert them to success. And like many of you, he didn't have a college degree. But he saw an opportunity in an economy where many of you are complaining about it. The Kenyan ears want to hear what our itching ears want to hear. So we resort to superstition and religious fallacies. We like hearing about an imaginary John who, despite lacking qualifications, got the job and the promotion. We like hearing about an imaginary Mary who started a business overnight and grew in leaps and bounds, although she had no business plan, no business strategy, simply because she tied to the man of God. There seems to be a God in Kenya and in Africa who blesses the first 10 firstborns to rush to the altar with an offering of 10,000 to keep it at the apostles' feet. There seems to be a God who blesses for no other reason except giving some bucks to the preacher man, to the preacher woman. Long ago it was only preacher men. These days women have also mastered the art. If the Bible is to go by, I'll tell you this very respectively and with a lot of humility. I've gone through every word in that holy book. And the God of the Bible says he blesses the work of our hands. Deuteronomy 8:18. The God of the Bible says a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands, and poverty will strike you, and scarcity like a numbed thief. Proverbs 6:10. If the God of the Bible is to go by, I'll tell you this. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. How can Jesus make such a statement? Yet he said he came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. Didn't he say it is his pleasure to give unto us the kingdom? How dare he say that the poor will always be with us? Because God is not party to your ignorance. Scripture says, my people perish due to lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6. The Lord himself bemoaned the fact that the world understands how things work than the children of the light. Luke 16:8. Tell your neighbor these words. The God of the supernatural is the God of the natural. Let me explain the point. Jesus fed 5,000 people, or other men. We don't know how many women, boys and girls were in that meeting. But if you look at the context, there were grounds for a miracle. They were far away from the city. It was late. It was dark. The shops were closed. They hadn't carried food. They hadn't carried money. And it was not their fault. They had listened to Christ preach to late night. The following morning, those who looked for the same bread, those who were not harvested, starved. There was no ground for a miracle the following morning. Because the God of the Bible says, so long as the earth endures, there will be sowing time and reaping time. Genesis 8:22. And so the God of the supernatural will not interfere with the natural laws unless there is clear grounds for a miracle. Here is the deal. All truth is parallel. No truth cancels the other truths. You can't pick one truth and run with it. Giving is a truth. Giving is biblical. Giving is scriptural. All cultures believed in giving. All cultures. If you go back to your culture, you'll hear you never visited anyone empty-handed. You never went to visit a child empty-handed. So it is even with the Hebrew culture. They never went to the synagogue empty-handed. But giving alone does not exempt your human responsibility. I believe in giving. For those of you who are Sense 11 members, I think you know next month, 27th of June, I'll be giving away some gifts to those who participated and those who are going to qualify and win the Dr. Kenyajunganga Speakers Award. I'm giving away a car. I'm giving away laptops. I'm giving away phones. I'm giving away a holiday to Malidi. I'm giving away a holiday to Dubai. Nobody can accuse me that I don't believe in giving. And you have come for our meetings where you never paid a coin, like KICC, among other places. Is that not true? And you can go there and find out what it costs to hold a meeting there. I believe in giving. But here's the deal. Giving alone will not liberate you because you can't pick one truth and run away with it. all truth is parallel. And that's why I wanted us to do this meeting tonight. I want to take you through some 5 lessons. Lesson number 1, change your paradigms. Lesson number 2, be a student of life. Lesson number 3, flex your mental faculties. Lesson number 4, evict mites quarters. Lesson number 5, and the last one, recondition your mind. Lesson number 1, change your paradigms. You may also want to write, shift your paradigms, one and the same thing. Throughout human history, philosophers have had different views about our universe. Thales believed that the earth is flat and floated in water like a log. Anaximenes believed the earth is flat but suspended in the air. Xenophanes believed the earth is flat with the upper side touching the air and the lower side extending without limit. The idea of a spherical earth was first proposed by Pythagoras approximately 500 BC, a concept that was later shared by Plato and Aristotle. The very first time that we thought about the solar system and the planets, it was proposed by Nicholas Copernicus, who suggested that the planets go around the sun. But he held the view that both the sun and the stars do not move at all. In 1609, Johannes Kepler refined the Copernican system and designed, or rather developed, a scientific model that explained the orbital movement of the planets around the sun. That same year, 1609, Galileo Galilei invented his telescope. And with a magnification of 9 times, he was able to view phenomenal sights like the 4 moons of Jupiter, the largest moons of Jupiter, and even the terrain of the moon, including its mountains and valleys. But while the idea of a spherical earth was gaining momentum, the evidence was overwhelming. The then bishops of the church refused anyone from advancing what they called heretical teachings about a spherical earth. Actually, they persecuted Galileo and arrested him so that he does not advance his views about a spherical world. You see, we never see the world as it is. We see the world as our instruments can allow. We never see the universe as it is. We see the universe as our instruments can allow. We see the universe as our lenses can allow. I want to ask you the question: how strong is the magnification of your lenses? You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. You can be all around wealth and never see it. You can be all around opportunities and never see them, and never seize them. In fact, you can date your dream life partner, take coffee with him or her, and never realize it. You know, there are people who only notice scarcity and poverty because you see the world as you are. I'm telling you this. A nanny can raise a child, and 30 years later, that nanny is employed by the same child she nursed. They lived in the same house, but different worlds. A security guard can open the gate of an infant when they are going home for their very first time from hospital, and the same child employs the same security guard. They were in the same compound, but different worlds. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your lenses can allow. You see, conventions teach us, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, quacks like a duck, then probably it's a duck. You see, this logic suggests you can identify an unknown subject by observing its habitual characteristics. What if you're observing your subject using inferior instruments? What if you're observing and judging me using inferior lenses? What if you're observing and judging me by your worldview, your limited worldview? Is your worldview the only reality? Precious friends, brothers and sisters, I want to tell you tonight, there's another reality that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has conceived. That's why Scripture says, call unto me and I'll show you hidden things that you think not. You see, the highest form of ignorance is fighting something that you do not fully understand. An intelligent mind will entertain an idea even without accepting it. And the way to shift your paradigms, one word, exposure. That's why we travel to distant places. We don't travel to escape life. We travel so that life cannot escape us. Exposure brings the hidden to the surface. If a child grows seeing the mother growing cabbages small scale, and the father taking those cabbages to the local market on a donkey cart, then the dreams of that child are limited to either growing cabbages small scale or becoming a donkey operator, cart operator. I'll never forget one time we were at Luxor City, a small town in Egypt. There was a young man, approximately 15 years of age, who wanted to help us board the boat with my dear friend Dennis and a couple of people here. And I looked at the young man. I didn't need any assistance to board the boat. Number two, that boat did not need a conductor. It was a motorboat. But because he grew there, he was born there, he never went to school, the only activity on earth he knows is helping people get on the motorboat so that he can get some tips. You see, you're limited to what you've been exposed. Now, the 17th century, the king of Siam used to invite the ambassador of the Netherlands in the palace over the weekends and sometimes some of the evenings. He wanted to hear stories about Europe. One day, the Dutch ambassador said how water sometimes in his country during winter freezes to something like a solid, so much that a man or even an elephant, if they ever existed in the Netherlands, could literally walk on water. The king of Siam, which is modern day Thailand, couldn't take it. He felt taken for granted and they never saw eye to eye anymore. He ordered his staff that that guy should never get in that gate anymore for taking the king for granted. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the conformity of a testimony, or rather the credibility of a testimony, is limited to its conformity to your direct experiences. And given the king's 17th century experiences of a country in Southeast Asia, he never fathomed in his wildest imagination the very concept of ice. He couldn't handle it. You're limited to exposure. I'll never forget Easter this year. My master, who is together with me here, said something interesting. Lover boy, you mean Facebook is that young? 2004. First, I was surprised that Master didn't know Facebook was started 2004, because I talk about it time and again. So I know sometimes not everybody listens to me. But what surprised me more is how our son Zig reacted. What? Facebook is so old. 2004. You see, the boy was born 2007. His world began 2007. Anything before 2007 is too old. I don't know whether your children are like my children, because the last 20 years there has been a phenomenal change in technology, so much that my own two children think I was born slightly after the days of the dinosaur. I still think I'm young. They think I'm almost expiring. But if you look at what has happened the last 20 years, the world has almost been the same for so long. Something phenomenal has happened, and we live in different worlds with them. Let me tell you this, all of us have biases. Some of them are universal. For example, whether you're conscious or not, we tend to trust tall people than shorter people. It's a natural. By the way, if you don't believe it, just go to a strange neighborhood. Go to a strange neighborhood, and if you're lost and you meet some boys playing football, as they traditionally do in Kenya, you're likely to ask the tallest kid in the team the direction. That boy could be the dumbest kid in the team. But the natural tendency is to ask the tallest among them. So the men here who are short, remember this, you've got to work twice as hard. That's the truth. We have a natural tendency of trusting attractive people much more An extremely, exceptionally, extraordinarily attractive woman in the streets of Nairobi will easily con anyone by asking any man for directions. Very few men will escape if she's a crook. I hope that the attractive women can use the same energy to do proper marketing, maybe of proper products. The average African has a natural tendency of trusting white men than our black people. So if a white man here in Nairobi opened a restaurant or a boutique or an electronic shop or a restaurant, honestly, the average African is likely to trust that shop than our fellow countrymen and women. Is that a fact? I'll never forget March this year, I was invited to speak in a conference for women in digital technology. What surprised me a little bit was the fact that I was the only black trainer in that conference. All the other trainers were of Caucasian origin. I have no doubt in my mind that all the other trainers were very qualified. However, during tea break, I interacted with a couple of women, and 3 of them separately asked me, "We hope you're staying the whole day," because I was opening the conference. I was the keynote address speaker. And one of them actually got so emotional, she had to be taken away. I had to talk to her on the side because she said there's something she connected with my speech. This was a business speech. And some of the mistakes she had done, she was able to connect with that. And she was saying, "Look, I wish you continue. The only reason is this. You can customize the message. You are putting it in our local context." And let me tell you this. While we invite these people to do jobs right here, they will never invite you to do jobs right there. And that's why Africans, we need to start celebrating our very own. It is time you start supporting our own restaurants and boutiques and supermarkets. That's the reality. And you'll only know this when you begin to travel. When you start seeing the destitute and the homeless among the whites. You know, Africans thought that the white man cannot die until they went for World War II. The biggest mistake the British made was to invite us for World War II. And then they realized, oh my God, these fellows are human beings. They came back and immediately brought a revolution all over Africa that led to independence. We got independence because of exposure. They had a different view of the same person. You see, we come in this world with no beliefs or convictions or perspectives or opinions. Our well-intended parents and teachers, especially teachers of early childhood, simply indoctrinated us with a set of beliefs and views and perspectives and convictions, which largely formed our early frame of reference. Regrettably, for most of us to date, we have never changed from there. So if you're raised in a hostile environment, you struggle loving others. If you never grew up with courtesy words like please, excuse me, thank you. You know the husbands and wives who only call each other at home, where? Where? They never had anyone near them saying, honey, darling. And those words can't come from their lips, especially guys from Chuka, you know what I'm saying? Sorry, at a light note. And Kisi, and Muranga. Yeah. We need to congratulate our men from Nyanza. Luo Nyanza, not Kisi Nyanza. Luo Nyanza. Kisi is just like Meru. And why our brothers from Luo Nyanza are able to say darling? Because they had their father saying it and their grandfather. It has been passed on from generation to generation. It is time we begin to challenge our realities, because your reality may not be the only reality. I think the most basic reality we all know is the law of gravity. We can't dispute with that. And if there is anyone who is going to argue against that law, immediately I'm through this message, please climb at the top of Brilliant Towers, jump at University Way, and before you hit those vehicles there, you will know there's a law pulling you, called the law of gravity. But is that the only reality? If that were the only reality, please explain to me how a 575-ton, fully loaded A380 is able to get airborne. It is because there's a higher reality, the law of aerodynamics. So long as you don't understand higher laws, you'll always be a subject of lower laws. And my assignment tonight is to help you see life from a higher dimension. And this takes me to our second lesson tonight. Be a student of life. Shh. Guys. They have just discovered some oil in Kitui. Before anyone else comes to know about it. Guys, I want to give you a secret. All the guys who came for this meeting tonight. I'd like all of you to be millionaires. Guys. Do not buy investment ideas like a moron. People just come and make presentations, and the next moment we become victims of pyramid schemes. And so long as you don't study investment, so long as you start chasing money, you'll always be a victim of financial scams. When you stop chasing the wrong things, you begin to attract the right things. If you have been listening to me for any amount of time, you know I like emphasizing we are not designed to pursue money, we are designed to pursue purpose and meaning and significance. And when you start pursuing purpose, success and money will follow you. I know it. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have not marketed myself direct marketing since the year 2008. All you need to do is to concentrate on your brand. Build it enough to the extent you can't be ignored, and the market will always be looking for you. It's Al Nightingale who said success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That sounds something similar to what we teach right here. You know, when you don't pursue meaning and significance, you become a victim of fallacies. The biggest suicide, perhaps the worst that has happened in Africa because of deception, happened in a small town called Kanungu in Uganda. When 235 members of the obscure movement of the restoration of the kingdom of God were convinced by their pastor that the world is coming to an end in the year 2000. And after a lot of chanting and singing and screaming, they set themselves ablaze. The biggest suicide ever known due to religious convictions happened way back 18th of November 1978 when Pastor Jim Johnson, an American preacher, led his parishioners to a tiny town called Johnstown, named after him, Northern Guyana in South America. And he gave 918 members of that church cyanide-laced drink, and those who refused were shot to death. 918 of them perished in one day. But even more recently, 2014, and some of you may have read it in my articles, a Nigerian pastor by the name Udu Kamalu convinced the single ladies that he needs to kiss their buttocks for them to get the right husband. Desperate for husbands, they all lined up along the beach as the man of God kissed their behinds. Man of God. So long as you don't read the Bible, you'll be subject to religious manipulation. If you ever follow me, never pay for a miracle. Jesus said, freely you have received, freely give. That does not mean you don't give in church. No. Let me make myself clear. Give in church. I'm only saying don't pay for a miracle. But this doesn't just happen with pastors. Educated professionals have misled people. For a long time, Dr. Benjamin Spock traveled all over the US, convincing parents they should not spank kids, they are too delicate. PhD in children's psychology. Many listened, including his own children. On Christmas Day in 1983, his own grandson by the name Peter committed suicide by jumping off the roof of Boston Children's Museum, where he used to work on part-time basis when he was a student at Massachusetts University. Ironically, Peter's own father, Michael, used to be the director of the museum then. I want to suggest to you tonight, never unplug your mind, whether you're in church or in a university theater hall. Don't take your brain for a break. Be a student of life. Don't be a follower. Take advice, not orders. Do not allow anyone to order your life. Make sure whatever you do is a product of your own conclusions. Be a master. All masters search for new knowledge with childhood curiosity. When they hear a new concept like Bitcoin, when they hear a new concept like GNLD, whatever concept they hear, good or bad, they don't make a judgment. They begin to search for information and details with childhood curiosity. Their cup of knowledge never fails. They never graduate from learning. They train more so that they can bleed less in battle. When you hear some advice, even the ones I give you on this podium, it doesn't matter who is talking to you. Process the information. Weigh it against timeless values. Weigh it against the unchanging Word of God. If it challenges your lifestyle, the information is sound, it makes you wonder, it makes you think critically, then change your behavior. Because the only way for you to go through personal growth and development is when you apply the knowledge. That's what we call wisdom. Scripture says the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. If you listen to what I'm saying and you eventually don't apply, you harden your heart. Don't trash everything you hear. Either extreme is dangerous. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Avoid paranoia. And the way to avoid being paranoid over the information you hear is being very clear with the true north. Be very clear with your principles. In other words, develop a guiding philosophy that guides you, that directs you, that tells you the true north. You can easily know the deviation from the true north. Why am I using the campus as an example? Because the planes, when they're up in the air, dark at night, the pilot can't see anything. What guides him is the compass. In the high seas, they can't tell right or left. They can't tell anything. It's not like driving. The only way to get to their destination is using a compass. And I'm saying use that compass. Whether it's dark or late, whether you're in Kenya or elsewhere, that compass will always guide you. See, I'll never forget, about 3 years ago, a prominent Kenyan gave me a phone call. He listens to my videos from time to time. And he told me, Doc, there's a very inspirational movie I came across. I'd like to recommend you. It's called The Wolf of Wall Street. Maybe some of you have watched it. Then he went ahead and said, just watch it. It's very inspirational. Just ignore the vulgar language right there. And I told him, thank you so much for letting me know in advance what I cannot watch. Because there are many other good movies where I don't have to endure or select what to listen. Let's go to lesson number 3. Flex your mental faculties. The only thing that separates you from the rest in the animal kingdom is your mental faculties. The only thing about you which is human is your mind. Everything else can be found in a cat or a dog or a horse. You are your mind. Your mental faculties are found in your subconscious system, your subconscious mind. Your mental faculties are your creative faculties. They create the image of the goal that you want to pursue, whatever goal that may be. It forms the ideas, and these ideas could either be constructive or disintegrating. But you have the power within you to reason with an idea when it comes to your mind, either to entertain it or to reject it. And that's why I want to suggest this. When an idea that is not advancing you towards your goal comes to your mind, reject it as sap. Don't entertain it for any longer minute. See, our society views education in terms of grades and degrees. And none of this is an accurate measure or predictor of your true potential. You are a being of unlimited potential, created in the image of God, with the capacity to determine or to create the world that you live in. Awareness of the divine powers that you possess is the truth that sets you free. From a neuroscience perspective, the average human being uses no more than 5% of his or her brain capacity. Your mind is the only tool in your disposal with which you can access infinite wisdom and attain ultimate success. We live in an era whereby it is the mentally strong who will not only get along by, but will be able to move ahead and become prosperous. And they become prosperous because they are deliberate about their mental inputs, their thoughts. They are cautious about the ideas they entertain, the activities they engage in, and the people they interact with. You have 6 mental faculties, and all of them are equally important. And each one of them, in no particular order, if properly applied, can lead to a charmed life of imagination and creativity and happiness and progressive realization of prosperity. And my job tonight is to try to help you think through these mental faculties. Forget about all those mind training games on the internet. They just consume your money and increase your sedentary screen time. I'd like to show you a sure way of flexing your mental faculties, a way that you can trust. Now, if you miss out on what I'm going to say, you're likely to be a victim of your reptilian brain and lose control of your thoughts. But it's my hope and prayer that I can help you come to your mind's driver's seat. 6 mental faculties. The first one, reason. Reason. Reason is your mental faculty that helps you to choose what to think and what not to think. You hone your mental faculty of reason through your mental inputs. Primarily through what you see and through what you hear. The eye is the window of the soul. Whatever you subject your eyes to for a long time, it forms mental images in your mind, and then you go to pursue those mental images. If you expose yourself to explicit, dirty material, you eventually go into the real life to pursue the same. You can't consistently expose yourself to strip clubs, porn magazines, and behave in a manner that is different. Which is also true about news. Whatever you watch on news, if it's always violence and scarcity and corruption, we know there's corruption in Kenya and many countries in Africa. I hate it with all my heart. But you can pick the nuggets rather than digesting the entire news about corruption. You will fail to believe there is something good about the country. You see, most of you here watch 7 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, as though there's an exam tomorrow on news. And you begin to process very negative vibes. I suggest this. If you know an invalid, someone recovering at home from cancer, or the so-called terminal disease, try what I'm going to tell you. There are people who took my message in its raw form, tried it, and finally gave me a testimony. Cover all their mirrors with their pictures of their heyday. Let them not see themselves on the mirror anymore. Let them see their pictures when they were looking healthy and gorgeous and great. And let them be exposed to that health self-image for 6 months as you continue to pray for them. And believe me, what causes healing is when your faith connects with God's faith. And that has to come with that picture in your mind. You know, throughout the ministry of Christ, he said, your faith has healed you. You must have that picture in your mind for the reality to happen. If you've been in a rental house for too long, I dare you tonight, look for an architect. Get your house to be drawn. Ask for 1 or 2 or 3 more copies to be hung all over. Keep seeing it. Start entertaining that image. It will eventually become your reality. If you're in a marriage that is not working, try this. Look for the pictures when you're in honeymoon. Look for pictures when you are dating. And make sure you get them in triplicate. So that once you hang the first round, and your spouse doesn't like it and burns them, you have another round to hang. Hang them all over. Have about 10 sets. Keep hanging those pictures. And let love conquer evil. It works. Remind him of the time he took you. My first out with Mercy, I was so lucky I was able to go to the beach. How many were able to take their girlfriend to the beach for the first time? Do you know which beach I took Mercy? It is one of the best beaches on earth, Dakaini Dam. And I say it with a lot of pride, but she stayed with me until we were able to go to Mombasa beaches. Dakaini Dam, that was our first beach. And we were 4 of us, a free beach. So the young men in our midst, and those who ever listen to me, never say that you have no money to go to the beach. There's even another one in Uhuru Park. That was my first beach to go. Here's the deal. We have many good pictures, but I value those pictures of Dakaini Dam than all the other pictures we have taken overseas. Because here's a lady who believed in me when even affording a matatu was very difficult. That memory for me is more treasurable. Take care of what you hear. The ears are the gateway to your heart. Be careful who speaks into your life. Some pour out of their own bitterness. Some speak out of their own frustrations. Never forget that misery loves company. If you are single lady and you're listening to me, if you're teaming up with other single girls who are always speaking against marriage, please get out of that company. It is poison to your bones. Hook up with people who are saying, hey, let's go to this Dr. Kenya Juinganga's thing at the Shaba. Start connecting with positive-minded people. Start spreading positive energy. There is not a single word you hear that is neutral. Words are never innocent. Words are the capacity to bless or to curse. Words will never leave you the same again. You've got to jealously safeguard what you hear, because that's what gets into your heart, out of which issues of life are erased. So you hone your reason through taking care of your mental inputs. The second faculty, we call it will, W-I-L-L. Will is the mental faculty that helps you to choose one idea over the others. They may not necessarily be bad ideas. They may be all good ideas. But unless you're able to focus on one idea, you spread yourself thin, you hardly achieve much. All great achievers learned one thing: to focus on one item until they become masters. Pick any name you know, they have mastered one thing because they immerse themselves intensely. If you tried to call me today, you'd have frustrated yourself. My phone was off. Why? I was focusing on what I'm going to tell you today. I was organizing my thoughts. And here's the deal. Whatever you focus on expands. The more you keep training like I'm doing, the more you become better in training. Whatever career you do, once you focus on it, the more you improve the skills. One way to help you to learn how to focus is to use a tool. There's a tool I use. What you need to do is to come up with a tool. For me, I use what we call the organizer. I write what I want to do every week, the weekend before. Here's my message for you. Plan each day the night before. Plan each week the weekend before. Don't make decisions at the heat of the emotion. If you wake up tomorrow morning and you have not already decided what you're going to do tomorrow, you are going to make decisions conveniently. If you are marketed, you can hear my voice, and then you realize suddenly on Monday there is heavy traffic and you wanted to see a client in industrial area. You're going to change and see another client in the neighborhood conveniently. And perhaps that was not the main customer. One way to help you to focus, write down what you want to do the night before. Anything that is not within your planner, whatever planner you use, I use the organizer. Don't do it. Practice until this becomes your new norm. And if you honestly believe it's an opportunity fronting itself and you don't want to lose it, then work closely with an accountability partner. So when an opportunity comes in the course of the day, which was not in the daily planner, then call your accountability partner and say, there is this thing that has come along my way. What do you think? Because most of the things that you want to do secretly end up becoming mistakes. The third mental faculty, perception. Perception. Perception is the mental faculty that forms our point of view. And it is shaped by our predispositions. Our predispositions are informed by our direct experiences and preferences, what we've gone through. Believe me, the only way to expand your perception is exposure. You see, you make judgments, you judge people, you form opinions about an individual or situations, you form opinions about a leader or about a certain business idea based on your direct experiences. And the only way to expand that is to be exposed, because you might be wrestling and fighting and conflicting with a great opportunity before you. Fight for exposure. All of you listening to me here tonight, there is one thing you have in common, many things, but one thing I want to mention tonight. All of you listening to me here tonight believe in the value of education. This is not anything I need to labor about. You wouldn't have come for my meeting if you didn't believe in learning. So the differential factor amongst your children will not be education, because every parent here, even those who are not parents yet, I know you will take your child to school, you will take your children to universities. That is not negotiable to anyone who came here. What will differentiate your child from the rest in their generation is one word: exposure. That's what gave Mark Zuckerberg leverage over all the other kids in the US, where education until Form 4 is free and compulsory. They call it grade 12. All kids there, and in the first world, all of them go to school. It's compulsory. But because this child was exposed to his area of interest when he was 12, they hired David Newman, a computer programmer. By the time he was 19, he was not playing computer games. He was already coming up with programs. Warren Buffett, on 4 occasions, has been regarded by Forbes magazine as the richest man on earth. He started investing in the stock market at the age of 11. By 19, he was already a serious investor. Many of you listening to me here have no clue where the stock market in Kenya is. I don't mean the physical sense. I mean you've never been there. You dread it. Why? It was introduced to you when you were old, and you fear this could be another pyramid. Exposure. The fourth mental faculty, memory. Memory. It is interesting how people say, I forget names, I forget faces, I forget appointments, I forget phone numbers. And a lot of people speak with a lot of pride, as though there's a reward for forgetting. Without realizing that the more you speak about it, the more you empower something that you don't like. By the way, if you honestly do not know your ID number offered, you'll need to look for a clinic after this, or even your bank account. In fact, come for special sessions to me. Seriously. And you can, each one of you here has a good memory. Don't say, I wish I had a better memory. All of you here. It's only that you don't flex your memory muscles. You flex your memory muscles the same way you flex your physical muscles. For example, if you want to do jogging and you have not done it for long, you run 200 meters, then 300 meters, then half a kilometer, then a kilometer, then 1.5. Eventually you'll be able to do many routes. That's the same way you climb mountains. You try Kilimabogo, which we require all our members to go through for the sake of keeping you fit. Then one day you'll join us to Elephant Hill. And maybe one day you'll climb Mount Kenya like I did in February. And maybe one day you'll join us, Mount Kilimabogo. But you can't start with Mount Kilimabogo before you do the little hills. Don't dare it until you do Kilimabogo. Don't do Kilimanjaro before you do Kilimabogo. That's the same way you flex your memory. You read a line, put it in your fingertips, internalize it, expand it to a paragraph, internalize it, make it part of your blood system, then read a page, then another page. One day, you'll be able to have 1,000 pages on your fingertips like I do. Okay, doc, but I'm not a trainer, I'm not a speaker. Why do I need to enhance my memory? Let me tell you this. If you go to a mechanic who listens to your car engine and immediately tells you, we need to change, say, the gearbox, you trust that mechanic than the one who goes to refer to manuals. If you go to a doctor and at a glance from your symptoms, they can tell this is what we need to investigate, you trust them. But if you go to a medical doctor who immediately goes to his college books to check these symptoms are for what disease, you're going to be very scared about this character. Correct? If you go to buy spare parts of your car and you meet this shopkeeper who knows all the spare parts offered and the prices and tells you this is for that, you trust their advice. But if you meet a fellow who is always referring, what were you looking for? Okay, let me check. You're likely to doubt whether he knows what he's doing. Correct? That's the reason, irrespective of your career, irrespective of your profession, if you want to win and impress your clients, enhance your memory. Flex your memory muscles. Mental faculty number 5. We call it intuition. Now, every man should listen at this very carefully, because the average woman is doing far better than men in intuition. Men, this is an area you need a miracle. Intuition is what many people call the sixth sense. It's a message from the infinite, a spiritual prompting, a personal revelation. It is what made Archimedes to shout, "Eureka can," when he stepped into a bathtub and realized that the amount of water he displaced was equivalent to the volume of the part of the body that was submerged in the water. It is that epiphany that made Dr. Ben Carson to successfully separate twins conjoined in the head. You hone your intuition faculty by listening and being attentive to your gut feelings. Listening to that inner voice that says, "This is the way, walk ye in it." When we are in tune with our intuition, we can predict outcomes, make the right choices, and connect with the mind of God. Intuition is what makes us to pick frequencies and vibrations and identify like-minded individuals even when you meet them for the very first time. I say with a lot of humility, my intuition is so high. I can meet someone for 2 minutes for the very first time and tell you whether we can get into business or not. And I don't want to scare you away from meeting me, but I can meet you for 2 minutes and tell your level of intelligence. Please don't get scared. Don't get scared by this. But it is something you deliberately hone. You've got to be deliberate about this. It is what makes you to read between the lines and not just listen to what people are verbalizing, but listen to the body gestures, body movement, facial expressions. Listen to the tone of the voice, and you can tell a crook from someone who is telling you the truth. By the way, if you want to know whether intuition level is very low, check whether you have been conned by a pyramid scheme. Check whether you have invested the wrong place. You need to work on your intuition. If somebody made a presentation and suddenly you found yourself putting $1 million right there, don't get hurt. We are here for learning, isn't it? It tells you you need to enhance your antennae. You need to connect with the divine much more. Mental faculty number 6 and the last one. Imagination. Imagination. Thomas Edison never reached high school. He employed scientists and engineers, came up with many inventions, groundbreaking innovations, including the light bulbs we have tonight, air condenser line, among others. He once said, "Imagination is more powerful than education. I can trust such a man." You know, we took our kids to Disneyland last December in California. And I can tell you this. By the time we were living there, the kind of ideas they were sharing with me, I thought they were 10 years ahead of schedule. But what touched me the most is a man by the name Walt Disney, who dreamt of doing what today has become a phenomenal art of creation. Way back, 1919. You know, this world is ruled by people who imagine. This world is ruled by idea people. Idea people rule the world. Idea people are the highest paid people. It's not the technical people. The more skilled you are, the more you remain at the technical level. The higher you imagine, the more you earn, the more your blood grows. Everything you see, including this meeting, was once an idea in someone's mind. Every piece of creation you have, that watch, that phone, was once an idea in someone's mind. Men and women who dared to dream, and then they pursued those dreams with singleness of heart. How do you hone your imagination? Go for a quiet place. Allow your mind to run wild. But remember, your ability to imagine is limited to your exposure. It's limited to your inputs. Remember what I told you? If all the things you have seen is car-fishy, your imagination cannot go beyond car-fishy. Oh, this takes me to our fourth lesson tonight. Evict mite squatters. A mite squatter is someone who illegally occupies an abandoned or an unoccupied piece of land or building. If you leave your mite unoccupied, mite squatters will occupy. They will invade. If you abandon your wife, mite squatters will entertain her. If you abandon your husband, mite squatters will steal him. If you abandon your health, Mites quarters will attack your health. Jesus talked about these mites quarters. Matthew 12, 43 through 45. He said, where an evil spirit leaves a man, it goes to a desert place. And if it doesn't get some rest, it comes back to its former home. If it realizes that home is unoccupied, no one is sitting on the throne of that mind, the evil spirit goes back to the desert place and comes back with 7 more wicked spirits. And the condition of that man or woman is worse off than the original state. Allow me to single out some 4 mites quarters. There are many mites quarters, but let me just pick 4 of them. The first mites quarter I want to mention tonight is the inner critic. The inner critic. This is your constant abuser. For some of you here tonight, if you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself, you'll never have any friend anymore. If you just listen to what you say about yourself, I'm a loser, I can't make it, I can't close that sale, I can't make that deal, I can't be that manager, I don't deserve that kind of a life partner, I don't deserve such kind of a car, I can't live in Kileleshwa. You can never get along with others until and unless you learn how to get along with yourself. In other words, if you're struggling to get along with others, you're struggling to attract meaningful relationships in your life, the odds are high you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. Here's the deal. If you constantly critique yourself, you will be irritated by those who celebrate themselves like me. You'll always be annoyed by those who celebrate their lives. You will easily be offended by others, especially those who hold themselves in high regard and high esteem. Let me ask you, please look at me. You are all writing. For once, look at me right now. What do you have against you? Talk to me. What do you have against yourself? What did you do to you? Can you then drop it and forgive yourself? If God can forgive you the sins you've done against him and against others, why wouldn't you be the first one to forgive yourself? Do you realize you're always with you? You are your eternal company. There's one company you will never leave. Not in this life, not in the life to come. Your own company. So you'd rather begin to celebrate yourself. Become your lead cheerleader. Don't wait for others to celebrate you. Celebrate yourself first. The second night's quarter we've got to evict tonight, I will call him the warrior. The warrior. I know you didn't write what I said. I didn't say warrior from the word worry. I mean from the word war. I'm saying warrior from the word worry. Please just make a correction. I'm not talking about war here. From the word worry. Are you with me? The warrior lives in the world of what ifs. He's a captive of irrational fear. Fear that bad things that happened in the past are going to recur. They are going to happen again in the future. To evict the warrior, live in the present. Most of the things we worry about never happen. In any case, worrying doesn't fix your situation. It makes them worse. It doesn't address your situations forward. Mark you, it doesn't leave your situations the same. It makes your situations worse. And most of the things we worry about never happen. To overcome the warrior, attend to your duties today. What you don't do today, you'll spend tomorrow worrying about. Every time you neglect your duties, you can drink overnight. Once you sober up, you'll meet the problems right there. So attend to your duties. Cut off excesses in your life. Your possessions and responsibilities own you. Fulfillment in life does not come as a result of extraordinary abilities or wealth. Fulfillment comes as a result of pursuing significance and meaning and purpose. Analyze what is important. Get rid of the rest. You are in a personal race. Don't worry about other people's races and paces. Focus on your race. Finish your race and finish strong. The third quarter we need to evict tonight, I call him the reactor. The reactor. This is a very funny fellow. He has no real motivation. He's impulsive, emotionally unstable, blows things out of proportion, and acts out of control. You know, ladies and gentlemen, life is not linear. There are many things you cannot predict about life. I hear us talk about from time and again about untimely deaths. Please tell me, when is it timely to lose your child? When is it timely to be hospitalized? When is it timely to have an accident? When is it timely to be heartbroken and lose your marriage? When is it ever timely to lose your job? When is it timely for a country to go into flames? Life will always have uncertainties. Wednesday, the 29th of November last year, we were headed for the US with my family, but we made a mistake, an embarrassing mistake. How many of you are like me? Sometimes you have very embarrassing moments. Anyone? Have you ever gone through embarrassing moments? For quite a long time, this is one of my most embarrassing moments. We reached there smiling. And as we traditionally do, because I am the doomer at home, I was pushing the luggage. And Marcia was holding the tickets. And she goes to presents them to this guy, and he says, "What's wrong with you guys?" It was 1 p.m. We knew the flight is leaving at 5 p.m. We knew we are 3 hours ahead of schedule. Very obedient people. We were told to be there 3 hours ahead of time. It's 1 p.m. and our flight is 5 o'clock. And the guy says the flight was 5 a.m. That's Wednesday, and that Friday I was speaking in a conference in California. We have a choice to make. One is to hit the ceiling and hit the floor and make fun of ourselves and give the media another side of the public speaker. We had a choice to make. To call these guys Turkish airline names of all domestic animals. We have a choice to make. So we analyzed the situation very fast. We didn't know what to do. Already it was very difficult to get that flight during that hour, that rush hour, that season. When back home, that particular day, President Uhuru was being inaugurated. The streets were a little bit unsafe. If you remember the circumstances last year. Reached home, we couldn't sleep. We told the kids to sleep. Mercy and I had to become the watchmen, watching in prayer. Do you think so? That's the time you look for the best inspirational speakers other than Kenyanjui. Then we went back to the airport at 1 a.m. The guy looked at us and said, you guys, are you all right? It is not 5 a.m. today. It was 5 a.m. yesterday. I said, I know, just in case another family made the same mistake. And sure enough, another family made the same mistake. And we got a chance. Now, you know, it's easy to get flight for one person, but for 4 people, and you're connecting, you know, we don't have direct flights. I think we will be having them from November. So either way, you have to connect if you're leaving Kenya across the Atlantic. By God's grace, we got a flight, but this, God works in mysterious ways. Initially, we were to land at Turkey, then DC, Washington, and then Boston, and then San Francisco. By God's grace, we got a direct flight from Turkey all the way to San Francisco. Believe it or not, we reached 3 hours ahead of the original trip. Yeah, God works in mysterious ways. But I'll tell you this with all honesty, with all integrity, we never blamed each other. Yes, the ticket was not indicated in a 24-hour way, and they never wrote AM or PM. We naturally thought it was 5 p.m. But we took responsibility. We never blamed each other. And I'm telling you this with a lot of integrity. What we decided to do is to focus on what we can change. Because it doesn't matter who did what. The flight has already left. What's my message for you about dealing with the reaction? Because many families break because someone reacts. This is my message for you. Focus on what you can change, not what happened. Not what might have been. Not what you can't change. Focus on progress, not perfection. Life is not linear. It will never be perfect. So why can't we focus on progress? Because it will never be perfect. Don't react. Doesn't matter whether your house comes down because of a bulldozer in the name of expanding roads. Whether you lose a loved one, don't lose your life, don't lose your head. Whether you lose a partner, is it possible your life requires more independence? And that's why they had to walk out on you. Did you know there's always a silver lining in every cloud? And if you focus on the bright side of life, you'll always see it. Mind squatter number 4, sleep depriver. The leading cause of insomnia is lifestyle. I don't need to convince you tonight that your eating and drinking habits have a bearing on your sleep. If you take caffeine or nicotine late night or eat heavy meals late night, the overwhelming majority of people, it will compromise your sleep. Alcohol is a sedative. It may make you fall asleep instantly, but may disrupt your sleep later on. But worse still is that alcohol is a lifestyle that has compromised many people's health, families, and careers. Zig Ziglar used to ask, if you had $1 million thoroughbred racehorse, would you give him booze all night in the cold? If not, why give it to $1 billion body? Sporadic routines, especially people who, like nurses, security people, and guys who have night shifts, sporadic routines can affect your circadian rhythm. Our diurnal patterns have a bearing on our nocturnal patterns. In fact, our bodies are like an internal clock. And your daytime routine has a bearing on your waking hour, your sleep time, and even your metabolic function. So what do we do to enhance our sleep? Because I read somewhere that he gives sleep to those he loves. Here is the deal. First, do your duties. Because when you don't attend to your duties, it will disturb you at night. Because you know you're going to be fired. You have no job security if you're not performing. Let me make it clear. Let me repeat that point again. Performance precedes job security. Most employees want to be given job security and then they perform. Assure me that the job is there permanently and then I'll perform. It doesn't work like that. You first perform and then you're assured of security. It's the same thing children will tell you, Mama, please, I know I didn't perform well. Don't skin me alive. Please, please, please. Next time, Mwalim, just write an A. Don't write a D. You don't know what my mom smokes. Just write a name, Mwalim. Next time, I'm going to work hard. It doesn't work like that. You first work hard and then you're given that grade. So do your duties. If you don't do, it doesn't matter how much you quote these scriptures. Believe me, you will lack sleep and he will still give sleep to those he loves. To have sleep, exercise. Make it a daily habit. If you don't have time to go jogging, please come up with something like skipping at home, but exercise. It makes your body to get tired and your mind to relax. Releases endorphins, the good feel hormone, and you sleep with less baggage. Then avoid screens late hour. They affect your ability to sleep. Read books like this one. Reposition yourself. Don't read as though you're reading for an exam. Kenyans are very good in reading for an exam. To say one book out, no. This book has 30 chapters. You can choose just to do one chapter every day for the next 30 days. And for most of you, if you have worked hard during the day, you have exercised, you've taken dinner early enough, and then you begin to read a book, you will sleep before you know. Correct? In my house, what we do, every single day we have a habit of reading a chapter in the Bible. If the chapter is too brief, we make it 2 or 3. Before we pray together, we read scriptures together. And we don't read them from tablets, not from phones, from the scriptures. It's normally the last thing we do before we sleep. And it works. It does work. Now, look at your neighbor and ask him on my behalf, which might quota does she need to serve an eviction notice tonight? Lesson number 5 and the last one. Recondition your mind. Recondition your mind. Mind condition is an automatic response, a reflex by the subconscious mind that does not need the prompting or the intervention of the conscious mind. It is what makes us to tame wild animals, ferocious felines like lions, an animal with 3-inch claws that opens its mouth wider than your head is long, whose jaws crush the bull's spine. Yet most tamers of these beasts know this. It is easier to tame them when they are cubs, so they raise them in captivity. The most inhumane mind conditioning that was ever done on a human being was done on little Albert when he was just 9 months old. Such a young infant. His tormentors, for lack of a better word, in the name of researchers, they brought 3 animals to this little infant: a white rat, a rabbit, and a monkey. That didn't move him. What startled him, however, is when they would struck a steel bar using a hammer behind his head. The sudden loud noise would make the boy to scream and burst into tears. And they did this for 2 good months in a row until he was 11 months old. When he was 11, then they would bring a white rat, and every time they presented to him a white rat, they would hit the steel bar with a hammer. And the boy began to associate the white rat with the loud noise. They did that every day, 7 times a day for 7 weeks. Eventually, every time the boy saw the white rat, even before the steel bar was hit, he would burst into tears and attempt to crawl away. He had been conditioned to believe the noise had something to do with the white rat. Amazingly enough, he was never scared by the relatively larger animals, the rabbit and the monkey. And we see this from time to time. Sometimes when a child, if you have ever taken a child for immunization, and the very first child is injected, if the immunization required that, as the needle passes through their tiny body and they begin to scream, all the other kids down the line begin to scream even without seeing the needle. Is that so? Yes. There are some subjects you hated. You had an opinion about some certain subjects when you were in high school, which you hate to date. And if you dig the history clearly, it has nothing to do with the subject. It is because the teacher either punished you or embarrassed you in public, and you never recovered from it. Does that make sense? Now the question tonight, is it possible that you could be having a condition, albeit unawares? You see, it's not your problem to be born poor. It is your problem to live and die poor. It is not your fault to have been raised up in a dysfunctional family. It is your fault to be in a dysfunctional relationship tonight. Doc, what did you say? I thought it's about my partner. No, it's about you. You see, if I come to your partner, she will tell me it's you. They'll blame you. Is that not a fact? So who is to blame? The devil? Partially true, but the larger part is yours. And here is the deal. Any relationship you have gotten into as an adult, you've got to take responsibility. Until you come to that fact that you take responsibilities for all your relationships, you'll never change them. You see, the first step towards going somewhere is deciding you're not going to stay where you are. Unless you identify the problem. The average person listening to me here tonight, who is not with their spouse, when they heard that I've announced about the marriage seminar next week Friday, they are wondering, God, how can my spouse come? And you know how she is difficult. And you know how he is difficult. I can see some men here who are faithful members of Sense 101. I can see them. And they wonder how God can touch their wives. But I can also see some women here who wonder how God can touch their husbands. God will touch your husband through your hands. Go try your hands. God uses your hands to touch your spouse. That's how he's going to touch them. Don't take them for other prayers. You are the prayer. You know, the worst disease known to mankind is known as learned helplessness. In 1965, Martin Seligman did a series of experiments on classical conditioning. He was using dogs. What he would do is he picked a dog, and then he introduced a light shock to the dog after ringing the bell. Every time he would ring the bell, he would electrify the dog, but a light electric shock. Eventually, the dog identified the bell with a shock. Then he took the game further. He brought a large crate and partitioned it by half, using a low-lying fence, so much that the dog could jump the other side of the crate if need be. So he electrified one side of the crate, but he did not put the shock, the electric shock, on the other side of the crate. And then he decided to put the dog on the side that was electrified. He naturally expected the dog, which could see the other side of the small fence, to jump over to safety. But unfortunately, that dog just lay down there waiting for his death. He repeated the experiment with several dogs and got the same results. He called it learned helplessness. This is exactly what makes some women and men go to the streets to beg. We call them street families. People who can wash clothes and earn for their day. Because there was a guy who was driving by and gave them some 50 bob. Without realizing you're destroying that person. She is not a cripple. You're encouraging that behavior. Learned helplessness. But we're thinking about street families. Could you be a victim of learned helplessness? You apply for a job once, twice, 10 times. And now you're convinced in Kenya you've got to know someone to get a job. Is it possible you apply for a visa, you wanted to travel overseas the first time you were denied, the second time and the third time and you threw in the towel? Is it possible you bid for a job, perhaps in the public sector or a parastatal or a corporate organization, you didn't go through, you tried the second time, a dozen times, now you're convinced corruption starts your way of success? Is it possible you even vied for a public office for one term and failed? The second time you did not go through, only your family voted for you. The third time you did not even vote for yourself. Is it possible you're listening to me here tonight and you're in sales and marketing? You knocked the first house. Maybe you're saying, maybe insurance, maybe multi-level marketing, maybe fast food, fast products, maybe clothes, doesn't matter. But you know this first house and you're turned down, and the second one, and the third one, you didn't close the sale, and the 10th one, and you vowed never again. Is it possible you have gone for a date with someone and he didn't commit? A year later, you saw someone else who didn't commit. 2 years later, you saw yet a third party who did not commit. And now you've given up on marriage. Is it possible you're struggling with weight? And despite doing whatever you knew how, you didn't lose the weight. And now you find solace in blaming your generational genes. If any of the conditions I described describes you and you identify with them, then tonight please understand you have acquired what I'm calling learned helplessness. You are never designed to be stranded by your circumstances. You are designed to be a creator of circumstances. How do we overcome learned helplessness? In the last half of the last century, when most tamers of wild cats, big cats, died in the entertainment ring, Clyde Betty staged theatrical shows and displays, magnificent performances displaying the mastery of man over beast. How did he survive playing with tigers and lions and cougars that were not tamed from childhood? Clyde Betty used to pick a seat, a chair if you like, a four-legged chair like this. This is your take home tonight. He'll pick a four-legged chair and go into the ring and present that chair right on the face of the lion. Cats have a single focus. When it's presented with a four-legged chair, the attention gets divided into four. The lion freezes, unsure what to do. For those of you who like animal movies, my best movies are animal movies, you realize when they identify a prey, if it's a cheetah, they zero into that one antelope. Even if it tries to get in back into the herd, they ignore all other antelopes and zero in on this one animal with a singular focus. That's the design of cats. So when it's presented with four options, it's confused. And what the lion prefers is just to sit down watching the attacker. It doesn't want to attack first. It is confused. It's not sure what move to take. And I want to explain about that concept of single focus. Let me pick 3 scenarios here. Say you're 90 kilos heavy and your desired weight is 60 kilograms. Stop focusing on the 90 kilo body and put your eyes on the 60 kilo. What's the difference? 90 and 60. What's the difference? 30. Purpose, I want to take, say, 6 months to conquer these kilos. If I divide the 30 kilos by 180 days, it's roughly 166 grams. Focus on the 166 grams, or maybe 167 if you round up. 167 grams. That's what I need to get down today. And I can achieve it by ensuring I don't take burgers. I can reduce sugars and starch. And I may not be able to run for 10 kilometers, but I can run for half a kilometer and walk for 3. My focus is only today. Forget about the 6 months, just today. But I ensure come rain, come sunshine, that 167 grams must be conquered on a daily basis. You'll never overcome this through exercise only. It has to be diet and exercise. And if you're listening to my voice, or you'll ever listen to this video recording, and you've been taking pills to deal with your weight, you will only do it momentarily. You didn't get the weight by taking pills. You will never overcome your weight problem permanently by taking pills. You're wasting yourself. Just purpose. And forget about the 90 kilos. Focus on the 167 grams. And believe me, in 6 months, there will be a difference. If it doesn't work, please come and say, I'm a liar. I know it works. If you are a marketer and you can hear my voice, this is my message for you. If you have gone for a month and you have not closed a sale, and you're listening to my voice, you're stranded, you're frustrated, you're about to change jobs because you are doing, say, insurance, now you want to go to Bitcoin, or you want to change it back to GNLD, or whatever it is. You try to sell clothes, it's not working. You're trying to sell homes, it's not working. I'll tell you the reason. You have a divided focus. Trust me. Try what I'm going to tell you tonight. Zero in on this customer as though he's the only customer on the face of the earth. Please stop writing. Just let it sink in your spirit now. Deal with this customer as though he's the only customer on the face of the earth. Prepare for him. Have your name cards right and your presentation right. Organize your thoughts. Play around that presentation. Run it in your mind 10 times. Make a presentation so much so, if you don't close the sale, you'll open the relationship. Worst case scenario, you have tested your skills in marketing. Believe me, if you go with such a single focus, you're going to close that sale. Then you can repeat the success pattern with the second customer and the third customer. Often than not, we miss critical opportunities because we live in posterity. We miss on current opportunities because we focus on future opportunities. Immerse yourself deeply with this customer. Make an impression until they have to look for you again. This is the same secret I'll tell any public speaker listening to me, and this is exactly what I do. Yesterday, I was speaking at Old Mutual. They had this huge event. I was invited by their own MD, Peter Mwangi. How do I get these meetings? Because I go with a single focus. I was not thinking about you yesterday. I was not thinking about master your mind. I was speaking to them about fresh start. Every part of my being, every single DNA, my whole brain was on that one message. And if you ever do that, they'll look for you for the second one and the third one. Whether you're speaking to students and there are only 10 of them, whether it's a church, pour yourself as though tomorrow you're dying. If you're a pastor listening to me, preach as though judgment day is tomorrow. With a single focus. The single ladies, the single men in our midst, if you go for a date, go with a single focus. Zero in on this guy. Enjoy the day. Forget about the future. A lot of single women, you're going for your first date and you're just, I wish he can propose. What's wrong with you? Enjoy the day today. So that even if he doesn't propose, you'll have lived the day. Don't postpone the date. You're postponing the date and you have no appointment with this guy to propose to you. Enjoy the date. And when you're preoccupied with the possibility of marriage, you're tensed, you're nervous. But if you purpose to enjoy this coffee date, you bring out your best self because you're not trying to work for him. You're not trying to, he's not checking you out. You're living your life. If he proposes, that's okay. But enjoy this date. Forget about the future dates. I wish he calls me for another date. Do you know what happens? You start to act. You're no longer yourself. Just focus on this date and enjoy this date. Believe me, all the meetings you come here, I've given you the lineup for the next 3 months, but my whole being is on this one message, what you're going to take home. I tell you this, the next moment, this world presents to you a four-legged chair. If you're going for an interview, You're looking for a job. Believe me, look at that job as though this is the only job on the face of the earth. Forget about whether you're going to go through or not. Let them wonder whether you had the scripts for the interview. Let them wonder who gave you leakage. Have all the fun you can have in that interview. Give it your all. The next moment, this world presents you with a four-legged chair before your eyes. Stop gazing at this chair. Debate in which leg is most important. Kick the chair behind you. If there's a place you want to go, go. The rest of the world will follow you or get out of your way. Whether you're conscious or not, you are on a final performance in the stage of your life. If there's something you want to do, do it. You may not do too much, but there is something you need to do tonight. There is a step you need to take tonight. Take it with singleness of heart. Take that step with a singular focus. Your destiny is something worth fighting for. Master your mind. Master your life. Thank you, and God bless you.